Welcome to Pillosphy, a production of the Counseling Center in Portsmouth, Ohio, one of the first and most widely affected areas of the opioid epidemic. I am Senior Director Max Lyles at the Counseling Center. Today's episode, we're going to talk about how people become addicted and then how people sustain themselves in recovery. So I've got my two guests with me today. I got Austin and I've got Dale. Fellas, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure's all mine, I must say. You know what I mean?
Let's do it.
So before we get rolling and kind of like into some of the content area, I always like to qualify my experts is what I say, right? You guys might not feel like it, but you are my experts in this situation.
That's scary.
So which one of you wants to start, man?
I think he's well more acclaimed than I am.
All right, let's go.
I'll take it, but I'll kick it off.
Let's go.
Yeah, what's up, guys? My name's Austin, a.k.a. Lil Brows. I do some rapping now, but I started off, from here in Ohio, where I had a great childhood growing up and then ended up getting into drugs and alcohol, ended up using together with Max.
Small world.
So it is just like crazy. I always think about that when it comes full circle and we're able to do like cool stuff like this. Like,
oh, yeah.
Just the dark times we had together, and then to make it through to the other side is really amazing. So I just always take time to reflect on that. But yeah, man, I just was one of those kids that got caught up in the opiate epidemic in Southern Ohio. And I had to actually go outside of the area to find treatment for me.
Yeah.
And, tried the geographical changes and those didn't work. It was kind of like wherever you go, there you are type of thing. So I think it's interesting to talk about that. But when I had enough pain and I was desperate enough, I ended up finding sobriety and just actually put the action in.
Sure.
And that's what got me sober, man. So it was a slow, gradual process getting into opiates. It was like partying and it was fun and it was looking for acceptance and connection. And then it just turned to dependence.
Yeah.
And like, I need this to feel okay and feel relief.
Right.
So now I find relief and acceptance and connections in other ways.
Sure.
So it's been a crazy journey.
Yeah. How long you been, you identify as like, you've got a nice little period of clean time you've been building on at this point. You care to share how long you've...
Yeah, I'm coming up on 7 years this summer. And my sobriety date's August 3rd, 2015.
Bro, my birthday's August 4th. So
really?
I mean, it's like a good season to celebrate.
Let's go, baby. That's awesome. And my home group's out in Los Angeles. It's Chapter 12 men's meeting. Clean date's August 3rd. And yeah, it's been a crazy journey since then. Things have gotten better and better the whole time. Like when I first got sober, I was thinking that this time around was a pink cloud phase.
Yeah.
And I was wondering when it was going to end. And honestly, coming up on 7 years, it hasn't really ended. Like,
sure.
I've had dips, but the guys in the rooms and the ladies in the rooms taught me how to get through those.
Yeah.
So it's really just been up for the past 7 years.
Yeah.
And I'll have that on August 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wrote a song about it.
Yeah, man. It's been crazy.
And to the other side of the table, Dale King, man, tell us about your sort of how you got into all the things that you're doing, and we'll get into all those things in a minute. But yeah, man, give us the bio.
Well, thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
First of all,
pleasure's all mine.
My name's Dale King. I'm a Portsmouth kid, so I was born and raised here. Old school, 99. Class of 99.
Man, represent.
So I kind of left as the pill mill epidemic was peeping up.
Yeah.
So I was gone for college and the military for about 10 years. Served in Iraq a few times, and then fate would have it, ended up coming back to Portsmouth in around 07.
Dude, I learned through Tia's Local Legends episode that you guys did some time in Colorado.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know why, but they live in Colorado.
Yeah, man.
You know?
Shout out Fort Carson.
We got the C's represented here too, California, Colorado.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it was interesting, like you were saying, like you had to get away in order to have some impact coming back, just to kind of see both sides of it.
Yeah.
So came back in 07, started working for the government, and then I picked up a bad habit in the military called CrossFit.
Yeah.
So this is like in the golden days of CrossFit.
Purist.
OG.
The pure times. Yeah.
OG. So eventually that would lead to me opening up a gym here, PSKC, Portsmouth Spartan Kettlebell Club. That would lead to doing a nonprofit. That would lead to another business called Doc Spartan.
Yeah, you might recognize Dale from his appearance on Shark Tank with his business partner, Renee.
I have my longer shorts on.
Yeah, I hate that, honestly. I really hope he'd be in the American flag joints. But anyways, we digress, so.
So Renee and I were fortunate enough to land a deal on Shark Tank, came back, and then that would lead to becoming a community partner with Counseling Center.
Yeah.
And that's when I really got exposed firsthand to recovery and addiction and the whole deal. So we started doing like an experimental program in 2018.
Yeah.
And that took off more than I think anyone used, considering we were the two ones here at the time to kick it off.
Yeah.
And so really basically changed our mission to try to hire and mentor as many people in recovery as possible through Doc Spartan. Which led to another company, Spartan Solutions Group.
And if you haven't checked out that website,
PortsmouthVersusChina.com.
Oh my, that's what is
this? It's a good domain name.
What is this? Yeah, it's nice, dude. They got some. We'll review on break, you know what I mean? But
so we got a crew out there. We were fortunate enough to play a role in bringing kettlebells to Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Being manufactured at Osco, and then our job is to help package and ship them back, along with doing some other stuff.
Yeah.
And I look like a hot bag of garbage right now because Sarah and I just got done doing a extremely long partner workout.
Yeah,
so.
Sarah being your foreman, your vice president of operations.
HBIC.
The head gal in charge at Spartan Solutions. Yeah. Dude, so you were talking about, like, I'm just a kid from Southern Ohio that got caught up in the opioid epidemic. I'm going to pose the question to Dale because we'll get into, like, how that started or whatever for you. But I would love to hear about, as people in recovery, we know about people in recovery's experience with addiction.
Right.
And we'll talk about that process. But from the person not in recovery, that's just like a community member that comes, like, basically, okay, so mid-90s, Purdue Pharma releases OxyContin. They start pumping that stuff out. You leave, really, before it gets, like, bad. 10 years of negative progression happens within the overprescribing of OxyContin, and then you come back. What's your first experience with seeing addiction in a community or on a personal basis? Like, what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was like, why are we moving back to Portsmouth? You know what I mean?
Colorado's nice.
Yeah, Colorado's
babe.
Nice. Let's go be a contractor out of DC or something.
Yeah.
Because we always keep tabs on hometown while we were gone.
Yeah, sure.
Just couldn't understand, like, where all these news articles and everything was coming from. And then you come back and it's like a ghost town.
Yeah.
It was like half ghost town, like half Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think within, like, maybe the first month of me moving back, my car got broken into.
Yeah.
What year was that when you came back?
07.
God.
Yeah, so 07. And then it was like all this, like, pill mill drama going around.
Yeah.
Pain clinics and the whole thing. And it was just like it was very similar in some aspects to a war zone in Iraq. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah.
Because it seemed like a complete power vacuum.
Sure.
So it was like something had moved in and taken over, and, like, people were just, like, fine with it happening.
Sure. The real lack of action.
And just like, hey, it's their fault.
There is in the addicted person.
Yeah.
And that's even a ploy you kind of saw, like, Purdue Pharma take.
Yeah. So
it's like, well, it's not our fault. It's the drug addict's fault.
There's been some great books out that have detailed the rise and fall of Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family. But when it first started coming back, all this crime rates had risen along with it.
Sure.
Arthur Sackler, I believe that's his name, he was like, well, he literally had it's called Hammer the Abuser. Mm-hmm. So it's the strategy they used was to hammer down on the abuser, not the distributor.
Right.
Because they're the ones abusing this non-addictive substance and causing all the problems. So it's literally right out of their playbook, a PSYOP playbook to hammer the abuser and cast all blame on them. It doesn't have anything to do with how they completely falsified records to say that the drug was not addictive, and there was all kinds of falsified studies and all the FDA language. But
So then when you come back to a hometown, because, you know, when you introduce yourself, it's like, I'm a Portsmouth kid, man. It's like when you come back after that time of being out and seeing the bleakness within the community, what was, like, some of your reactions? How'd that make you feel?
Well, I was angry.
Yeah.
I was angry in general.
Just
Just
as a baseline, but then that made me more angry.
That made me more angry. And I was, as a veteran coming back into civilian society, it's not like some guys deal with PTSD, but I think everybody deals with a transition back into whatever society is.
Yeah.
So I'm dealing with that, and I'm coming back to this society.
Right.
And it just felt like everything, like I loved growing up here. I mean, I truly loved being here, growing up here, cruising the strip.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole deal. And it just seems like people just pulled the plug on it.
Yeah.
And casted it off as it was like, I'm like, well, we have 2 wars going on right now.
Yeah.
We've had, at that time, 6,000, 7,000 U.S. servicemen, men and women died for our country for this.
Right.
And so I was dealing with a lot of anger with that. So the gym was a way for me to throw up my middle finger at everybody and say our tagline was, in a town devastated by weakness, we choose strength.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is important to mention is there was one pain clinic that when the state came in 2011-12 and shut all the pain clinics down, there's one pain clinic still in operation. Saturday mornings, 9
a.m.
at PSKC.
We call that workout pain clinic.
That workout is called the pain clinic.
Love it.
There's one.
Still existing.
Still in existence, and they ain't shutting that one down, man.
That's dope.
So what's it like for you to hear, as a person in recovery who, you know what I mean? Well, I personally love opiates when I'm using, you know what I mean? It's what is your reaction to hearing what's a non-addictive alternative pain medication?
Well, first off, I just want to say, because when you were talking about that, it was kind of painting the picture, and I was thinking I was kind of in that war of it feels like I've been through war now, just obviously.
Veteran of the drug war.
Yeah, I mean, obviously nothing close to what you've been through, and thank you for your service, but in my own personal life and through addiction and stuff, I think that's a reason now I just have such a strong sense of gratitude every day, where I'm dude, I get to live, I get to do these things, because it feels like I've just been through war, man, and just given me a completely different perspective. So it was interesting to hear you say that, because I feel like I kind of lived through that here. And your question, to hear that it's non-addictive.
Non-addictive, man. OxyContin's non-addictive. What's that like as a person who is hopelessly addicted to those? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
What's your reaction to that?
My initial reaction is that, well, obviously it's addictive, but it's just, people are different. And I remember growing up, I used to think I was just very hard-headed and had a lot of willpower and stuff. And I would even look down on people that may have got addicted to things. And I was I played sports, and I was oh, dude, I'm athletic. I could dabble a little bit and get right back to what I'm doing and just switch that. But once I started dabbling with opiates, I was just completely dependent on them, and physically, mentally, psychologically. And then I watched all my friends get addicted to them as well. This same group of kids that was, playing sports, and we had a core 5 people in my hometown. I grew up in Franklin Furnace, and the Furnace, baby. And my friends were really tight growing up, and we were good at basketball, and we even made the paper one time, because I think we beat Memphis with 4 kids. One of our kids fouled out, and we had no team members, so that was a big deal for us.
Throwing shade, bro.
I was bro.
I never played basketball, by the way. I never played basketball.
I know. I still have the article. I'm I don't know, it's fine. You can check it out.
Actually, October 2nd.
Just look at that.
Oh, you're football. I know. You guys crushed. Those same group of kids, fast forward 10 years, 4 out of 5 are addicted to opiates.
Yeah.
3 out of those 5 are using heroin.
Yeah.
I remember my dad was, worked in the Adams board and in that.
Director of the Adams board.
Yeah.
It's he wasn't a dabbler. It's that's the guy.
He was the
you know
guy.
what I mean? He was the guy.
So the irony is, comes full circle.
Yeah, for sure.
And he struggled with addiction when he was younger too. He dabbled in his thing, and he has a crazy AA, true AA story too. He was 31, 32, walking down the street, saw one of his friends that used to use with him, and the guy had that bright look in his eye and was wearing a suit and his
moment of clarity type stuff.
And he was what did you do? And he's oh, let me show you, and took him through the steps that day.
Right.
So it was straight out of the fucking big book. And So he had the experience with it. So by the time I was getting to that level, like he was trying to throw everything my way, like
Sure.
here, help, let's try to get you on Suboxone, let's try to like get you an AA, treatment, therapy, all these things.
Sure.
But I just was not ready to do what it takes to get sober, which is like get really honest with yourself and put the action in, do the hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So then from there, like from a personal perspective, like what is your Pillosphy, if you will, on like what contributes to people getting addicted? Because that's the other part too about substance use disorders as a disease. Like the disease model is that really there are protective and risk factors that go into it. You know, genetics play a role, your environment you're grown up in play a role. You know, there's the whole ACEs thing, adverse childhood experiences, stuff that happens to people that can contribute to the development of a substance use disorder, right? But from your own personal account, like what we know is that drug addiction, substance use disorders transcend every barrier, real or imagined, that you could come up with. Right. So like from your perspective, what contributes to that? Like how does that happen to somebody who's got friends and is playing sports and has a dad that is like trying to teach him this stuff that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, just even through my experience of moving out to LA and getting sober out there, the meetings are big and there's freaking, you know, homeless people in there and celebrities in there. So like when you first say that, I think of like, it doesn't discriminate. Addiction does not discriminate. And what I love about the rooms and just recovery in general is that it kind of evens out the playing field for everyone.
Yeah.
And it could literally happen to anyone. When you first asked me that question, I think of like this, I think of all the factors like the environmental, you know, the way your even your emotional levels are, your hormone levels, like just seeking escapisms from an early age. That's what I think of. Like I was seeking escapisms from an early age, and it even started with like music. I'd put music on. I'd fantasize about like this thing happening, or me like saving kids from like like I don't know, just like
something to get on the
being
paper,
the hero.
You know what I mean? Just trying to get in the paper.
Yeah. Just trying to make the paper, which we did, 8th grade against member. I'm just kidding. But yeah, man, like that's what the initial thing I think of, and I'd like to hear your guys' perspective too on like what all plays into it. But the earliest I can remember is wanting to escape and like feel better and like feel kind of like just different. I was just like a really like kind of a sensitive kid. Like I remember being like a mama's boy. Like my mom would drop me off, I'd cry, like seeking that like love and connection, like growing up. And then it just really just like fast forwarded into like partying because I wanted to fit in with my older brother. So like that's, you know, social. So I start drinking, I start smoking weed, and then it slowly gets into like harder things. But there was always a sense of like, I'm lonely and I want to feel connected.
And I think the other part too that's important with that is substance use disorders. All it takes is a person using a substance. And once that happens, there are people who are susceptible to develop substance use disorders. There are people who are not susceptible to develop substance use disorders. But the crazy part is none of us know. So like this friend group that you're growing up with, you know, I graduated high school with 100 people. Of that 100 people, there are statistics of how many of us are going to go on to develop a substance use disorder just based on statistics. None of us know. And the only way to find out is you take a substance. And in a lifetime, 90% of people are going to experiment with drugs and alcohol in their lifetime. That's a huge number. Only about 10% of the population in their lifetime is ever going to go on to develop a substance use disorder. So this whole like, why don't they just quit, just say no? If your life's this bad, why wouldn't you just like slow it down or stop? That's actually what it means to have a substance use disorder, is that despite the consequences, you can't stop, manage, or control what's going on.